Welcome to DMV Spotlight here in the nation's capital, where we shine a light on the issues impacting D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. I'm Barbara Britt. Well, we're heading into the holiday season, the season of giving, and no one has given more to our nation than our veterans and their families. And Fisher House Foundation is there to help our veterans. My guest today, I'm delighted to welcome back to DMV Spotlight. Dave Coker is the president of the Fisher House Foundation. He has his own legacy of military service, a long line of family military service. And I want to thank you so much for joining me today on DMV Spotlight.
Oh, thank you, Barbara. Very much appreciate the opportunity. We tend to be a best-kept secret, so when we can tell people about the Fisher House story and what we're doing, it's always a good day.
And that's exactly what I was going to start with, Dave, is for folks who may not know, what is Fisher House? Just give us a rough idea of what Fisher House is and what it does.
Well, at the heart of our program is a network of 93 comfort homes called Fisher Houses. And if you think about what Ronald McDonald houses do for the families of children, allowing the family to be together during a personal medical crisis, we do the same thing, except we focus on the military and veterans community. And we have 93 houses. We have at least one house at every major military and medical center, and we're working our way through the VA healthcare system.
And I know that you are on your way to try to hit a new milestone there with the Fisher Houses.
Well, we are on the road to 100, and that's a significant number for us. But once we get there, we're going to just keep on going because the need continues to grow, and it is all across this country.
It sure does, as a lot of our now younger veterans come home from their conflicts as well. And I want to make sure folks understand that there are several right here in the D.C. metro area. There are several Fisher Houses. I counted 3 in Virginia, 3 in Maryland, and 1 here in D.C. proper. Tell us what it's like for these veterans, Dave Coker from the Fisher House Foundation. What does it mean to these veterans when they can go to a Fisher House or have their family nearby while they're being treated?
Well, when you get that call and you learn that a loved one is wounded, ill, or injured, you want 2 things. You want the best medical care, and you want to be there. And the VA and military health systems are 2 of the best in the world, and they provide absolutely world-class health care. Having a place for family to stay is a little bit more of a challenge, and that's where we come in. The houses range in sizes. The original houses were 5,000 square feet. But as we started building multiple houses at certain locations, we said, you know what, we can build these houses bigger and we can build them better. And so the largest house we build is 16,800 square feet. And they can accommodate between 7 and 20 family members, or actually 20 families. They each have a private suite and a private bath, and they're drawn into the common areas. The best room of all, and especially this time of year, is the kitchen, because that's where you smell the coffee, you smell the baking and the cooking, and you're doing those normal daily activities that give your life some sense of normalcy. And when you're in the house, you see people who are dealing with some of the same conditions, but they're a little further along. And so you see how well they're doing, and that gives you stability and strength and hope.
And I was going to ask you that, Dave, because all of these families, they're all military families. I'm not sure folks who are not in the military understand the sacrifice that families make as well. When you have service members who are gone for long periods of time, that means that whoever is the remaining parent is carrying the load, paying all the bills, doing all the work. And then in this situation, what measure of comfort is it for all of these families to be together? As you mentioned, it gives them hope and stability. But do they also encourage one another?
Oh, absolutely. They share the burdens and they celebrate the joys together. And you really develop a sense of an extended family. When I was introduced to the Fisher House program. It was back in '93, and I was a volunteer. And that was at the Fisher House at Fitzsimmons Army Medical Center. And that Thanksgiving, we had 5 families in the house. It was a 7-suite house, and all 5 had babies in the NICU. So life was uncertain, but if you don't think that was a special Thanksgiving and the gratitude those people had, not just for the healthcare team taking care of those babies, but the fact that they could share the holiday together.
And you bring up a good point. My guest today is Dave Coker. He's the president of the Fisher House Foundation. That these houses are not only for our veterans, but for their children. A lot of times it is a military family staying at a Fisher House with children who are dealing with an injury or illness of their own. I'm not sure people understand that is also something that the Fisher House provides.
And one of the great things is, as we expand into the VA system, the VA healthcare is to care for he or she who is born the battle. And, when they receive the gift of a Fisher House, they can start providing more services to the families and allow them to be a part of the healing process. Our program started in 1990. And so we weren't there for those who served in World War II and Korea and Vietnam. But now we do serve them, and we can be there for them as they deal with other issues.
And that is so important. And for our veterans themselves who are dealing with these medical issues, what does it mean for their healing to have their family alongside of them?
Well, many times it changes the decisions they make. I remember visiting the Fisher House in Houston for the first time. We now have 3 houses there that can support 60 families. But when we only had 1 house, I went in and I got to meet some of the folks, and there was a young fellow there, a young veteran. And as I met him, he said, "Sir, I just want to thank you for saving my life." I said, "Excuse me?" And he lived several hours away. He was diagnosed with cancer, and he was told he needed to come to the big city to get health care, and that he was going to need to be there for 6 to 8 weeks. Well, he knew he couldn't afford to bring his wife to Houston for that kind of a time period. But then he learned there was a Fisher House, and he could come, and that there was no cost for he or his wife to stay there. And that morning, he had his final appointment with his oncologist and was told he was in remission and he can go home.
That is amazing story. Thank the Lord. That is an amazing story, and that is really the heart of Fisher House, to provide that kind of hope and support for our veterans and their families. And I want to ask you, Dave Coker, the president of the Fisher House Foundation, we're coming into Giving Tuesday, and I know that Fisher House Foundation has a special match that they're getting. So tell folks about that.
Oh, we have great friends, and one of them is the folks at 84 Lumber. And so what they have done is they've offered a match of $100,000 for every contribution given over Giving Tuesday.
That is incredible. That is an absolutely incredible, generous donation. I know you do have a lot of support, and I want to make sure that folks know that coming up in 2023, which is almost upon us, I know you have a special fundraiser as well.
We don't do many events, and we don't do a lot of fundraisers. We focus on providing services, but we received an offer we couldn't refuse, 20 years ago. Our friends from SAP Public Services came by and said, "Hey, we can give you a check for $20,000, or we can turn it into a golf tournament and raise you a lot more." Well, over the years, they have raised millions. And so our Fisher House Golf Classic is a wonderful event held out at the Lansdowne Resort. We have 2 courses there, and it has always been just a wonderful day of golf and a wonderful day of fellowship that does good and helps us do more for military families.
And I know that's in May. I don't have the date in front of me, but I know if you go to the website, you can even
It's
begin
going
to
to be
sign up.
May the 1st.
May 1st. Well, we can remember that, May Day. And I guess the other question I have for you today is what is it? I know people are listening, they want to get involved. What are the ways that people can get involved with Fisher House?
Well, there are lots of opportunities. One of the things we take pride in is we've learned a lot from the people who've graced our houses. And so we've expanded some programs. Of course, they can make a financial contribution, but we also recognize that sometimes travel is the barrier that keeps families from being together. And so people can donate airline miles. They can donate hotel points so that we can help families if the Fisher House is full or if the need is a place where we don't yet have a Fisher House. And then, of course, one of the things I'm very proud of is that the Fisher House has become a catalyst for community support. And a lot of times there are groups, social groups, veterans groups, or just families that want to come in and fix a meal at one of the houses. And that way they can learn the stories of the people who are staying there and learn more about the program. Sometimes you think, oh, I'll do something nice for somebody. And in the end, don't be surprised when you get the bigger gift from giving a meal, sharing a meal with somebody. Now, the best way if you're interested in volunteering at the houses is go to fisherhouse.org. We've got a directory of all the houses with COVID and the different restrictions because, of course, we want to keep the family safe and adhere to the local conditions. If you contact the manager, they can tell you of opportunities at the local houses.
That is fantastic, and I did know there's an email and a phone number for each of the managers. I just want to thank my guest today. I've been speaking with David Coker. He is the president of the Fisher House Foundation. You hear about it a lot here on WMAL Radio, and you'll hear more at the end of the week with the annual WMAL Fisher House Radiothon. We hope that you will give generously. But I just want to thank you so much for your time today and all your service and for Fisher House and all they provide for our nation's veterans. Thank you so much for joining me today on DMV Spotlight.
Thank you, Barbara.
And thank you. And join us again next week at this same time for DMV Spotlight.